Hi Ken.
Hey George.
In previous videos we've covered the need for societies to come up with economic systems to help them to allocate their resources. Because as we said as well, people have abundant needs and wants and scarce resources to satisfy those needs and wants. So we talked about a whole spectrum of systems ranging on the one hand from pure competition or pure capitalism to centrally controlled systems, central planning systems. But we pointed out that most modern Western industrialized countries are examples of what we call mixed economies, where the government has some intervenes to some degree for various purposes, and of course any course like this one will go through and discuss those, but that's not our purpose today. What we're going to do today, I think, is start at the competitive end of the spectrum and analyze what the role of markets is in this allocation of resources in modern mixed economies. So I think probably makes a lot of sense for me to ask you to explain to us what a market is.
Sure. A market is any institution where buyers and sellers can actually interact. So it doesn't actually have to be a physical marketplace as in the old bazaar or agricultural markets. As we know with the internet, you can actually be living anywhere on the globe and be a buyer or seller. Anywhere that buyers and sellers can actually exchange, express their willingness to buy, express their willingness to sell.
Exactly.
So the markets that we'll be talking about cover, as you suggested, a spectrum of competition. So our initial focus in terms of our predominantly market-based capitalist system is that prices will be generated through the interacting forces of supply and demand, and no one single buyer or supplier will be able to control or exert any influence over market price whatsoever. Now, I've got a terrific little model which I'd like to show you. If you just give me a second, and I'll draw it up for you on the whiteboard.
All right, that would be great. Can you do that? Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Terrific. Thanks, mate.
Imagine a competition continuum where down one end of the spectrum, competition is really, really fierce. So what we're talking about here is a market where there are many small firms, and each one producing a standardized or homogeneous product. And down the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme, you're talking about one firm only, hence monopoly. So here we've got one supplier, here we've got many small firms, each producing a homogeneous product, which is just a flash word for identical or standardized. So this is quite a unique situation, but you can imagine you don't have to be a huge multinational conglomerate to be a monopoly. If you're the only vet in a small country town, then that specialist service is quite unique. If you're in the market for a vet, then you're the only one, there's only one there, that you would anticipate that in that situation the one firm can actually exert a fair degree of market power. Now, in between the two extremes lie, not surprisingly, the vast majority of businesses and industries in Australia. Slightly away from this extreme control that monopolists might have, we find a market structure called oligopoly. Oligos, Greek meaning few, 2, 3 or 4 very large firms, and collectively their output dominates the market. The finance industry is a good example of that because we talk about the big 4 banks. Closer to the purely competitive end of the spectrum again, we find a rather intriguing little category called monopolistic competition. Now, monopolistic in this sense is used as an adjective. It describes still a highly competitive market structure, but the firms do enjoy a small degree of market power. And of course we use the word monopolistic to actually infer that. Where we're going to go from here, ladies and gentlemen, is to have a look at how demand and supply interact in a purely competitive market to actually create a market price, given the fact that we've alluded to the importance of prices as determining where resources go and who gets the goodies. So in our next clip, we're going to jump into demand and supply and have a look at how those forces create a market price.